Welcome to the Comic Sauce Podcast, where we talk comics and comics culture. I am Henry Liu, and today I'm joined by Christian Diadamo. Christian, how are you?
Hey, doing well. It's a good day.
All right. I'm also joined by Porfirio Rangel. Porfirio, how's it going?
It's going good, Henry. Happy Latinx Heritage Month, and we're going to talk about a character that I'm pretty sure you both of you know, was influenced from Latinx pop culture.
And that character is who?
Dun dun dun, Batman.
Yes. Today is September 15th, 2023. And tomorrow, the 16th, is Batman Day. So this episode is going to be all about Batman. It'll be a Batman Day celebration. Yeah. So we each have a Batman movie to talk about. So let's get right into it. First off, all three movies have been out for some time, so we probably don't need to give a spoiler alert. But just in case you haven't seen them, we're going to talk about Batman the movie from 1966, Batman and Robin from 1997, and The Dark Knight from 2008. So you've been warned. Spoiler alert on those three movies. And we're going to cover these in chronological order. So my pick was Batman the movie, sometimes referred to as Batman 1966 or simply Batman. But this was the first Batman movie starring Adam West, and it was it originated from the TV show. It released between seasons 1 and 2 of the 60s Batman show. So, man, this is pretty wild watching this movie this week because I hadn't watched it in a long time, like decades, I think. And I did love this movie very much as a youngster. And I was very curious to see, how it would hold up and just how it would feel watching this much later in life. Yeah. So where to begin here? Okay. Well, a big plus for me is the music in this movie. The music in Batman, the movie, is awesome. It is this jazzy 60s musical score, and it is like infectious. I was digging it the whole time. It might have been my like number one like positive for the whole movie. Um yeah. So the music from the TV show is very famous. Like to this day, people know that Batman TV show theme song, right? Batman, right? We all know that. It is from the TV show. And yes, it is in this movie as well. And there are a number of like familiar song cues in this movie. They use the Batman TV show theme song, like the Joker theme from the TV show is in the movie also. So a lot of familiar musical moments. But in addition to that, there's all this cool, like jazzy, swinging 60s stuff going on too that you did not hear on the TV show. So it was really cool. Like you got like the familiar TV theme music, but they sprinkled all this cool, like jazzy musical score throughout also. So it made for like just this great musical experience. So like you kind of throw up the colorful costumes and just the whole like bright and fun look of the movie with this awesome musical score, and it makes for kind of a cool like 100-minute music video almost, right? So I'll say that the music, in addition to like the visuals, it makes for a pretty cool experience. And yeah, it did bring me back to when I was a kid watching this movie and just sort of reliving it and getting some cool like nostalgia vibes from that. So maybe the bigger question for this movie is like, how does it hold up? This is a really old movie. Yeah. Almost 60 years old now. And yeah, and even like decades ago, people were kind of making fun of the TV show, making fun of this movie for being really silly. And yes, it is a very silly movie, and yeah, it's dated. It feels dated. It doesn't really hold up in a lot of ways. Um, but yeah, I think there's still like, a number of things going for it. So yeah, I talked about the music. What else? Yeah, like I was, a lot of times with when we review movies, we evaluate the acting performances, right? And acting in the 60s is a lot different, was a lot different than it is now, right? So it's hard to like evaluate acting. And yes, the acting is very campy, it's over the top, and it's hard to really, say like, oh, Adam West had a great acting performance because his line delivery is it's so over the top, right? um so I'm not gonna like trash talk any of the actors performances because that was just like how it was, right?
Hmm.
But one standout I think was the Riddler, Frank Gorshin. He's really good, man. um there's something about him, like his physicality in his performance, and just the way he just kind of goes all in. Like his laugh is crazy. Like historically it's the Joker's laugh that is like kind of well known in Batman movies, but the Riddler's laugh is like he kind of outdoes the Joker laugh, I think, in this movie. And Yeah, like Frank Gorshin just like he just goes all in. Like I feel like a lot of the actors may have felt like, this movie's kind of a joke, so we're just going to treat it like that. But Gorshin almost like he almost like takes a more serious approach to it, where he just completely commits to the character. So I really enjoyed his performance. Um, yeah. So what else here? Um,
I have a quick question, Henry.
Please go ahead.
So why'd you pick this movie?
Why did I pick this movie? Okay, great question. A big part of it is what I mentioned earlier. I was very curious to see how it felt watching this movie again after such a long time. And it is a really beloved movie from my childhood.
Hmm.
So there is a curiosity factor there. And another part of it is this idea that there should be room for a Batman movie like this, right? So I know over time, this movie and the 60s Batman TV show has been ridiculed, like
Hmm.
when the Tim Burton Batman movie was being made, um, they were fighting an uphill battle because everyone was pointing to this Batman as being a total joke, and like who would want to see Batman again after that nonsense, right? And there was just a stigma on this Adam West Batman, and I get it. Like if this was the only live action Batman we all got, I'd be pissed too. I'd be upset. This is not right. But the fact that we get all kinds of different Batman characters, Batman stories, Batman settings, different tones, different vibes, 100% there is room for a Batman movie like this. There should be a Batman movie like this. Yeah. So I fully endorse that. You know, it's like comics, right? There isn't just one kind of Batman comic that is made over and over. Like people might think, oh, like Frank Miller, The Dark Knight Returns is like that's the essential Batman and the only Batman that matters. But no, like look at like Batman's had a long history in comics, and you look at the wide spectrum of stories and tones, and that's how it should be. So yeah, I fully endorse Batman the movie, and it belongs in this legacy of Batman films. Yeah. So my own curiosity, yes, but I wanted to sort of support that, the idea that a Batman movie like this does exist, should exist, and I fully support it. And I wanted to, you know, watch it again and make sure it wasn't a total disaster before I like advocated it, you know. And yeah, like a lot of it, most of it, honestly, is dated. But there certainly are certain aspects to it that are worthwhile, you know, definitely. Yeah, just a few other things I wanted to point out. I think it's really cool that it does take a lot of what works from the TV show. It's not this movie where it's like, okay, we're doing a movie, so we're like we're not doing what we did in the TV show. This is something different. We're going in another direction. No, they totally leaned into the TV show. They got like the best villains from the show. They used the theme song. They used the Batmobile, like Robin saying "Holy this, holy that." It's all in there. Like everything you know and love from the TV show is in the movie. Like you will not be robbed of that stuff, right? And there's more. You know, you don't you get not just the Batmobile, but you get the Batcopter, you get the Batboat, and the Bat Cycle. You get all these vehicles, and yes, you get Batman and Robin doing that weird climb up a building. That's in there. You get the visual sound effects, the wham, pow, zowie. That's in there. The big brawl, you know, like you always get like this big um, henchman brawl in the TV show. You get that in a big way in the movie. Like you get the ultimate 60s Batman brawl at the end of this movie. They fight on top of a Penguin submarine, and it's glorious. It's so awesome. And so you get a lot of the like the studio scenes, the on-set scenes from the TV show, but then they add in like a lot of on-location stuff. There's like a lot of outdoor shots in this movie. So it's cool. Like you get like a lot of the fun, familiar stuff from the show, but they definitely made efforts to go a little bit above and beyond the TV show. And when I was seeing that, I was like, that's kind of a template for stuff we see later, where like a beloved TV show is adapted into a movie. I think what's done now is kind of what they did with this movie. You know, they used what worked with the show, and then they like added to it. Yeah. So before I go ramble too much more, any thoughts as we're going along here with Batman the movie?
You know, I haven't seen that movie, but it just sounds like, like it just shows, I guess, like why Batman's really kind of beloved, because there's just so much I don't know if complexity is the right term to use, but like Batman can be interpreted and done in so many ways. It doesn't have to be like what you said, like the serious tone, like the Tim Burton tone, but it can be done in this way and still be, beloved. And I think it's really awesome, and still like folks recognize that that's like Batman, And I think that's
Mhm.
why the character like has its own day, because like it's just beloved by folks who may not like serious stuff, but like comedic stuff and can like this side of Batman, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I like that sentiment because yes, the tone of this movie is so different from like the Snyderverse or the Rob Pattinson Batman or
Hmm.
the Michael Keaton Batman or the Nolan trilogy. Um, but like it's still Batman, Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, Commissioner Gordon, the
Yep.
Joker, the Riddler, Catwoman, the Penguin. Yeah, that was another thing that struck me. This is like the ultimate villain team up in a Batman movie. You talk about an awesome rogues gallery. Like those four villains feature prominently in this movie, and yeah, they picked the all stars for the villain lineup here, which is so awesome. So why don't I wrap up my little review here? You guys want to do ratings for our picks
Hmm.
like we usually do, or we
Well,
don't have to?
do you have a rating in mind that you would pick?
I of
Yeah,
course have one in mind,
yeah,
so I can
I
give it.
think yeah, ratings are cool, but I think yeah, I mean I can't give a rating, but
Yeah, yeah. So we can
good.
just give our
Yeah.
individual pick a rating. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um. So yeah, this one, like I keep saying, this is a dated movie. Like beware. If you put this on, it is on Max right now, widely available. It is very dated, but it has a lot going for it. Even more than like a historical curiosity. I think there's more than just that to it. I think, yeah. So I'll give it a 3 out of 5, and it is dated. Um, I'll also say this movie is pretty freaking crazy. It's weird, it's wild, it's kind of hard to describe. But it's a bizarre movie. Um, it's comedic, but it's not really that funny. It's dated, like it's just the jokes are very old and like from another era. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
um yeah, there's an ongoing gag where it's kind of a play on Batman being the greatest detective in the world. So he has to do like detective work, but it's all like a total joke because the way um he figures things out is almost like he does this crazy guesswork and just like happens upon the right answers and stuff. And it's almost offensive to to the Batman character, to be honest, because like it's really stupid. It's just he's just making guesses. He's just making these crazy guesses, and somehow it comes up with the right answer. And I guess it's supposed to be funny, but it's just really strange. I don't get it. Maybe it was funny like 60 years ago. I guess. It's just strange. So this movie's out there. I will give that disclaimer. A lot of people might put this on and be like, "What the fuck is this?" I get it. I understand that.
Uh,
Um, one final perspective I wanted to give is that um, this movie was essentially my introduction to the Batman character. And I think that's pretty cool. I kind of advocate that. I think this movie is a great intro to the Batman character for young children. It's, you know, not violent at all. It's not dark at all. Very kid friendly. And I'll add to that when Batman started to get dark in comics and movies, it kind of hit harder, right? Like this is the Batman I knew. So when I read Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns or Batman Year One, or watched Tim Burton's Batman, etc., etc., like that, it hit really hard. And I think that's kind of cool. I think that is a cool trajectory for people to go on. Yeah. So if you're like a young child, maybe they're not ready for the Dark Knight Rises with Bane and stuff. But they're sure as heck ready for this. So why not give them this first and then later on hit them with the darker stuff? And I'm telling you, man, it'll be like that much more like how do you say, impactful. Yeah.
Oh,
So that's my pitch for
okay.
introducing this movie to young
Mhm.
children.
Well, well said. This is probably also the first Batman movie I watched too,
Oh, right
when
on.
I was like
See?
5 years old.
Hey, cool. I
And
love
yeah,
it.
it's hard not to fall in love with it when you're 5.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
So really fast, I guess before we move on to the next one, I want to ask a question for Christian.
mhm.
So I know like a few years back, you at Silicon Valley Comic Con, you did a meet and greet with Adam West, you know.
Yeah, and
I'm
Burt
ass-
Ward.
yeah, and Burt Ward, and I assume it's because of this movie, and the TV series. Like what did that like yeah, like what did those actors and characters like mean to you?
Yeah, that was actually it was pretty great. That was I think probably the last public appearance of Adam West too was Silicon Valley Comic Con of that year. Um, and so um I did watch some of the show growing up as well. They would air it, I think, on Nickelodeon actually. Sometime after school, they did like really old reruns of it for a while, as well as seeing the movie from like the local library on VHS or something, VHS or DVD. And
Hmm.
so, it definitely it's like it's such an early age of Batman, but it's so ingrained into the character, even though like as Henry was talking about, like growing up, like, and you even see this with kind of the more dark and grittier Batman becoming popular. People are like, oh yeah, like that old thing, but it's such an important part of the Batman canon.
Yeah.
It's so
Hmm.
iconic in its own right.
Hmm.
Like, like there's also some days you can't get rid of a bomb. You have the shark repellent bat spray. You mentioned the
Yeah.
climb earlier.
Yeah.
Like, like there's this movie's so iconic in its own way that you see these things kind of pop up in later Batman movies as well, or even just other media as oh this is Batman, like Adam West was on The Simpsons and they did a little Batman gag with that, or like it's kind of just like this big piece of 60s Americana.
Hmm.
Um, and because it's so campy and kid free, when you see it as a kid, you are kind of enraptured by the sets and like the goofiness of it, the camp of it all. It's just a lot of fun. And so it was really great seeing both of them. I asked Burt Ward, because I was dressed as the Riddler, who's your favorite Batman villain? Because he asked me if I had any questions for him, and he says, favorite Batman villain? You can't have a favorite. They're the villains. They belong in Arkham Asylum.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, okay, Robin. So that was such a great interaction
Yeah, that's
with
cool.
Yeah.
them. It definitely
Hmm.
is a moment, I think I'll never forget.
Yeah.
That's great. That's perfect for specifically the Burt Ward Robin because he's such a Boy Scout, right? So of course he's gonna say something like that.
It was such a great great line. Like it was so
Yeah,
quick from him.
that's so cool. Oh, and that makes me think of one other thing I wanted to chime in on, and that's that you mentioned it's just like a fun movie, right, Christian? But yeah, that stuck out to me. Like everyone's really happy in the movie, And like it's such a weird thing to see um a DC movie, specifically a Batman DC movie, where everyone's just happy. You know, at the beginning of the movie, there's like a civilian like on a picnic or something, and he sees Batman and Robin in the sky in the Batcopter, and he's just like, it just gives a fella a good feeling knowing they're up there protecting us. And he's just happy, And then, Batman's actually pretty happy. Like he actually he dates Catwoman. He doesn't know she's Catwoman in the movie, but he thinks she's this woman Kitka, and he's like happy. He's like in love with her, and the villains are happy. Like the Joker is very happy in this movie. Like he's not the tormented like Joaquin Phoenix Joker. He's just like laughing, like genuinely like happy laughing throughout the movie. And he's just like getting a kick out of their scheme, and all the villains are just like having fun. Oh yeah, just real quick, like I was gonna add on to that the Riddler character, right? There's a moment where he wants to send out one of his riddles. And like the other villain's like, what are you doing? Like, don't give away our plot or whatever. But he's just like, oh, but I love doing it so much. And it's like, it's very telling. It's sort of like, well, he just likes to do it. So that's why he does it. That's why, like, if you ever wondered why this Riddler sends the riddles out, potentially like giving away his schemes and whatnot, it's just because he really loves to do it. He has fun. That's why he does it. And it feels like everyone's having fun in this movie. It's so weird. Like this Gotham City, everyone's happy. It's so bizarre. But that really stuck out to me. It's a happy Gotham City.
Yeah.
Very different. All right. Let's move on. So cut ahead to about 30 years later, and Batman is once again a phenomenon on screen in the movie theaters. And we get the third follow-up to Tim Burton's Batman, which was a huge hit. This one is 1997's Batman and Robin. Porfirio, this is your pick, so you want to take it away?
Yeah, sure. So I think this one, I think both of you can agree, is notoriously known for being like the worst Batman movie of all time. And maybe not just Batman, but like superhero film of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's directed by Joel Schumer. And if you look at the cast, you would think like this is an A-list cast. You have George Clooney, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Irma Thurman, Alicia Silverstone. Like you would think like, how can this go wrong? And yeah, you'd be surprised. So, yeah, this one was made in the late 90s. And it has George Clooney playing as Batman. Arnold is Mr. Freeze. Irma Thurman is Poison Ivy, and Chris O'Donnell reprises his role as Robin, and Alicia is introduced as Batgirl. And so Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy are the big two villains, and like besides like their scheme of guess of like taking over the world and whatever agenda the characters have, like the film is just like very over the top. It has its puns. It is very like cringy in a lot of times. The dialogue is just horrible. um I mean, I could probably keep going on and on about what's wrong with the film. You guys can probably add some also about what didn't work with the film. But I guess like what I will say, like why I chose this film is because um Did I want to watch a horror movie? No, I did not want to put myself through 2 hours of pain. But I did read an article talking about how this is, I guess, like the queerest Batman film. And so I think when you look at it through that kind of lens, there's a different perspective on the film. One, it's directed by a gay man, Joel, and then two, there's just so many like queer underlines with the film. Like there's like a big like the opening scenes, there's like a big like male gaze, there's the bat nipples on the suit, and then like there's like a very close up shots on like Batman's ass and his like crotch area, and then the makeup of Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze is just over the top, and the dialogue is just very campy. Like all this stuff I said, very negative stuff in the beginning. Like when you look at it through like I guess like drag queer lenses, it's just so stuff that's common in those kinds of in those art forms that you're just like, oh, okay, I could see it that way. Like Poison Ivy, I feel like I just kind of imagine her as like a drag queen, you know, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is something I could see a drag queen like wearing, like with like green high heel knee high boots and a green silhouette and like plants just like wrapped up around her, you know, in this like really fake ass like red wig, you know, like I was like, okay, I can see a drag queen wearing this. And I think once I like saw it through that kind of lens, I was like, okay, this is very stupid and campy. And so I enjoyed it a lot more when I watched it through that kind of perspective. Um, because I know I've definitely tried watching it in the past and I just couldn't get like past like the first like 15 minutes because it's just ridiculous. But I think once you like let go and just be like, you know, this is just a film that's not going to take itself seriously, don't do it, then I think it's a lot more enjoyable. Um, but yeah, so I think that's why I want to rewatch it through that kind of lens, and I enjoyed it a lot more. Um, last last Pride in San Francisco, there was a Pride in Gotham event where like yeah, it was like kind of like I guess like a Gotham bank hostage takeover of like Batman villains. And I didn't go, but a lot of friends I know went, and I saw videos and photos of it, and it just kind of looked like the setup just looked exactly like the setup that they had on this film, like um the cheap plastics set design and just the over the top like um dialogue and campiness. I think again, I'm pretty sure the director never like straight up forward like said like this is like a queer Batman thing, but I'm pretty sure he knew what he was doing, you know. Yeah, like what's your guys's um take? Because I know both of you guys I think have seen it and
Mhm.
call this and can agree
Mhm.
with me that this is the worst Batman movie ever.
Nope.
Well, just a comment, we had an episode where we talked about the worst superhero movie of all time. And basically the conclusion was this movie was the worst ever.
Yeah.
So it's pretty funny that you brought it up here or through a different lens, like you're saying, right? Yeah. So my question to you is similar to like what I was talking about with the 60s Batman movie. I
Mhm.
was talking about how there is a place for that movie in this long legacy of Batman movie. Not only is there a place, but I'm glad it's there and it should be there. Now, with this movie, Batman and Robin, do you think there is a place for this movie in the legacy of Batman movies?
Oh, that's hard to say. I think, you know, kind of to be honest, I feel like this was, I don't know if like ahead of its time, if that's the right term, because I feel like at the end of the day, this film, you know, was created by a major Hollywood studio and was at the end of the day trying to make money off of it and thought it was being serious and or not thought, but like would wanted to take Batman and just make money off it. But when you look at it nowadays with like, I think like stuff being a little bit more like not so on the nose and there's just a lot more acceptance of different kind of perspectives or themes across like not just like the superhero genre but like different kinds of um genres, animation, action, drama, whatever. I think there is a place for this now. Like I don't think it was recognized at that time, but I feel like again, looking back at it, like now, like through like a queer lens, I think there is a better appreciation, and I think that's why like there's like certain queer fandom that can relate to this film and just be like, and you see drag queens like perform as Poison Ivy or like have reference like the bat nipples, or like um like just be out there, like I said, they made like a Pride in Gotham event in San Francisco, and I feel like a lot of it maybe can be attributed to like this film being a part of that Batman legacy. um so yeah, it's hard to say. It's hard to say if it was ahead of its time, but I think like it could definitely be appreciated a lot better, at least for the queer community, queer nerd community.
There you go. I mean, I think you just answered the question, and that it is a yes. It is maybe more of a niche yes. But yeah, there's a place for this. Like, okay, like I was saying with the 60s Batman movie, not the first Batman you're gonna reach for when you want to watch The Dark Knight in action, right? Um, but maybe it's like a a young kid's play date, and they want to see some superhero stuff. I put on Batman the movie. It's kid friendly, it's fun. There's a place for it.
Yeah.
And okay, maybe there's a drag event. You want to have people dressed up as outlandish Batman characters. I think this is the movie, right? This is the movie you want to have on for that event. You don't want to have on uh uh the Dark Knight Rises for
No,
that
yeah.
particular event, right? So yeah, of course, yeah, there is a place for this, right? And it's like I said, more of a niche sort of thing, but yeah, like why not? Like, and when we're talking about like inclusive fandom, that's what it's all about, right? It's not like, okay, Batman is just one thing, and if you don't like this brooding Batman, the Snyderverse Batman or the Nolan Batman, then sorry, you can't be a Batman fan. That's bullshit, dude. Like, if you want to like dress up like Uma Thurman as Poison Ivy from Batman and Robin, more power to you, dude. Right? So um absolutely. Yeah, I think there's a place for this movie somewhere, maybe not in the mainstream, but
Maybe,
yeah.
yeah, maybe you can't like see that like the first few watches as a kid, but maybe I think like yeah, like you as like a kid, you could just kind of go back and be like, maybe that's where I got like my first like sexual like interest or whatever by looking at those bat nipples or
Yeah.
whatever.
Oh, and
uh,
just one more tie-in with the 60s film. It's funny how the Tim Burton Batman from 89 was like the dark response to the campy 60s stuff, right? But then, a few sequels later, it kind of went back to it, right? Because
yeah,
the Batman and Robin movie is actually kind of similar to that 60s Batman movie in a lot of ways. They're very campy, they're very bright and colorful and silly. So it's kind of ironic. It just sort of went full circle back in the other direction.
Yeah. What about you, Christian? What do you think?
Yeah, like I think like this movie is pretty iconic in its own right, and it's in terms of like the Batman canon and like I guess superhero movies in general. I think I see this movie as like it's kind of like the Room of superhero movies. You know, it's everyone knows it, everyone knows the lines. You know, eyes to meet you, and so on and so forth. That I think it's still like a pretty fun watch. You know, you've had a couple beers, you kind of rag on the movie while you watch it. There's like a really, you know, there's a funny riff tracks on it in the background, just like say Trolls 2 or um The Room, you know, like
Hmm.
and I think because of that, you know, because it's a movie that's so bad and almost completely killed superhero movies
Hmm.
Yes.
back in the late 90s, it kind of has a very special place in within the genre, even if that special place is kind of, you know, at the very bottom. But the thing is, everyone knows it. No one's ever gonna forget this movie because of like every, you know, everything that it does, how over the top it is, and kind of how it kind of fumbled in a lot of ways, you know. Like it's still very much Batman.
Indeed. Oh, and just sort of furthering what you're alluding to, Christian. Yeah, this is kind of a landmark movie, and uh, Kevin Feige from Marvel Studios has cited it as being one of the most important comic book movies ever made. I mean, it's kind of a like a backhanded compliment, I suppose.
It
But
yeah,
the impact is you can't deny it, because basically what happened after this movie was like a response to the movie, right? So we talk about a lot about like, oh, where how did the MCU originate? Like, there would be no MCU if there was no Spider-Man 1 or X-Men 1 or Blade, right? Well, the same could be said for Batman and Robin. You could argue that there would be no MCU if there was no Batman and Robin, right? Which
yeah.
is a pretty out there statement, but
Mhm.
an argument certainly can be made.
No, for real. Like you said, like yeah, like Kevin Feige said, like that superhero films had to be like reevaluated
Yeah.
to how best to tell those stories, you know? And so I think like for better or worse, like this is part of that superhero genre history, and it allowed like studios and filmmakers and writers to just be like, this is what not to do.
What not to do.
and
Yeah.
and so let's learn from that, you know. like that's just like, I guess, like a common theme within, like, just like the superhero like genre on comics and film, is that like there's always going to be trends about like testing the waters, like what works, what doesn't work, and then you just kind of move forward and be like, okay, like this is not what people want. Let's just reinvent the wheel and see what catches people's attention. You can't just stick to like the same formula, you know.
Indeed. So after Batman and Robin, superhero movies went through a major makeover, I guess you could say. Um, and the Batman character itself went through a huge makeover, right? So after Batman and Robin, understandably, there was a lot of trepidation to revisiting the Batman character in movies. But Christopher Nolan changed the game when he released Batman Begins. We did a whole episode on Batman Begins, so I recommend folks check that out. Um, but this year, 2023, marks the 15th anniversary of the sequel to Batman Begins, The Dark Knight from 2008. Christian's pick. So Christian, take it away.
Yeah.
It's so weird how we're going from like the worst Batman movie to like
Mhm.
one of the all-time great
Yeah.
Batman
Oh,
movies.
and I want to add that to my intro too. Batman and Robin is known in many circles as the worst superhero movie of all time, and The Dark Knight, in many circles, is looked upon as being the best superhero movie of all time. So this is cool. We're having this conversation.
What a switch in tone. So take it
Yes.
away,
Yeah.
Christian.
You have the beginning, like the downfall, and then kind of the rise back into the peak
There you
of
go.
Batman. Um, so I guess oh yeah, we didn't do your rating, Porfirio. Do you have
Oh
a
yeah, that's right.
rating? I
Hold
think we
on.
all know what it might be.
Actually, I am not gonna give this a 1 out of 5. I think I will probably get this a 3 out of 5. I think, um, despite it is regarded as the worst superhero film of all time, I think just like me seeing it from like a different perspective and analyzing it through like queer themes, I think there's a deeper appreciation for it, for this community. And not to say like I still recommend to go watch it. I feel like like Henry said, you have to have a few drinks in there to like enjoy it. But I think I think like yeah, it's hard to argue that it probably did leave some like impact for like some queer folks, like whether they being like in the drag scene or just maybe coming to terms with their own sexuality. And so I think it's just I don't want to say it's the best, but like a very like that overshadows like the under appreciation of like these like undertones.
Very cool.
Hey, yeah, that is a new take. Definitely a much more positive take for this movie. So, well, all right, let's get into The Dark Knight.
Dun dun
So,
Yes.
dun.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight. Yeah, so as you mentioned, Henry, this movie is 15 years old. And 15 years ago, this movie was kind of something else. I think it was a very different time in kind of where the genre was because it was, Iron Man had just come out the same year and the MCU hadn't really gotten going yet. This, and so this is kind of very much like the end of an era. This and Iron Man, I feel, were the end of an era and the beginning of something new because what hasn't really been said about the Dark Knight yet? It really is just like one of like the peak superhero movies. The one that back at the time I remember this movie ran for several months. It came out in the summer in June, and I remember seeing it in the theater in the winter because it was such a phenomenon of a movie.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
think you had talked about Henry how uh a lot of people in Batman 66 no one was really taking it seriously. They were just having a lot of fun on set, and you could really see this. Whereas this is like the tonal opposite of that, a complete rejection of Batman 66 and Batman and Robin. There's zero camp. It's all serious. You have Oscar caliber actors here, Christian Bale, Heath Ledger, Michael Caine. The list kind of just keeps going from there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, helmed by Christopher Nolan, Oscar caliber director, um, making a movie that did, win an Oscar. With Heath Ledger's very iconic performance of the Joker, a performance that like changed the character forever, you know. And this movie is, it's like pure grit. It's
Mhm.
super dark. It's kind of like edge of your seat uh thriller, cop thriller. Um and watch it again, I still I loved this movie. This is like my favorite movie back in high school. And while superhero movies have changed a lot, I think this movie still finds its own way to kind of stand amongst the crowd in a way, and just that it kind of leans so hard into the thriller aspect, the and like the tense edge of your seat moments. Um, the way the soundtrack is, you always feel the Joker's presence whenever you're watching this movie, even when he's not on screen. You know he's somewhere out there. And so with that, there's always like a little bit of tensity in the movie, because it feels like he kind of can come out at any moment. And there's parts that really catch you off guard. There's a really big jump scare where, the mayor's about to look out the window and like you see one of Batman, like the fake Batman characters pop into the window and there's this big jump scare. And then you see the Joker's like really creepy message on TV. It does a lot of Joker antics, and it adapts the Long Halloween and the Killing Joke, but it kind of gives it a lot of its own spin to kind of feel like this is something that could happen in a way.
Mhm.
And I think with also that, I think one thing I also want to mention is that like this movie, another way this movie's kind of just remained in the cultural zeitgeist for so long is it's just such a quotable movie. It's like everybody knows these quotes. Like you either die here or live long enough to see yourself become the villain. Some men just want to watch the world burn. And I think one thing I always like that I don't hear as much is if you're good at something, never do it for free. Like, um, and so like quotes like you've heard time and time again. Everybody knows those. Knows these certain scenes from the movie just because it's made such a profound, lasting effect. And it's kind of like I said, it's a movie that's so good in a way it kind of haunts DC. This always has to be the movie that they have to one up until the end of time. And I think every Batman since has been um compared to this one.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
well, how's it
Yeah.
going to follow up The Dark Knight? How is
Yeah.
this new Robert Pattinson going to hold a candle to um the Christian Bale, Christopher Nolan one? You know,
Yeah.
and because it's just, it's The Dark Knight, you know. And so um I still love it. I still think it's definitely one of I is it the best Batman movie still? I do love the Batman a lot. I'm really not sure if I could say. I think this is a better movie, while the Batman is the better version of, say, the character in the world of Gotham.
Mm. Mhm.
Mhm. Mhm.
I
Mhm.
like the feel of the Batman more, but I think this movie is just too well made.
Mhm.
I think another
Mhm.
thing I do love about this movie that I think sets it apart from other superhero movies is that everybody loses in this movie. In the vast majority of superhero movies, the hero beats the villain and the hero wins. That's kind of the formula. Everyone knows that.
Mhm.
But in this movie, nobody wins. Um, the Sure, Batman beats the Joker. The Joker doesn't steal the soul of Gotham and sow chaos amongst the city completely. He still goes to jail at the end of the movie, and Batman still saves the day. But in order to do that, in order to save Gotham, Batman has to kill Two-Face. He drops
Mhm.
Two-Face off of a building at the end of the movie. He breaks his one rule.
Mhm.
Not
Mhm.
to mention, Harvey Dent is kind of built up as the White Knight of Gotham. He's the hero Gotham needs. Yet he
Mhm.
kind of falls into becoming Two-Face after Rachel Dawes dies. Also part of that love triangle with Batman, someone he loses as well. Commissioner Gordon and Lucius Fox also have to the only way they can win is by committing unethical acts, basically covering up Dent's murders and the mass surveillance that Lucius Fox has to do to find the Joker. Everyone essentially commits a sin. They break the rule and they have their bad day. And so I really like that. That's something you don't really see. And I think some of the best superhero movies of all time outside of this also end on these kind of losses where you sit and think about what you've seen. Was it all worth it? Everyone loves Infinity War. Everyone loves Logan. In a way, those are also movies where the heroes lose.
Yeah.
Logan, I won't spoil those. We didn't say spoilers for those. I've spoiled enough. They're older movies. You get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I think that's also what really makes this movie stick out and what makes it so great. But that's my spiel on the movie. So, what are your guys' take on The Dark Knight?
Great take, Christian. Yeah, I liked what you mentioned about how there are things that happened in this movie that could really happen in real life. And really, that's what Christopher Nolan brought to the Batman universe, right? Reality. So when we talk about Batman the movie, Batman and Robin, even the Burton Batman movies, like they were very fantastical, otherworldly. There wasn't much realism. But all of a sudden, with Batman Begins and probably even more so with The Dark Knight, you got this heavy dose of reality. Like if there was shit going down like this in real life, this is what it would look like, right? I would say this probably hits that realism button even more than Batman Begins, because I feel like with Batman Begins, with the Scarecrow character, you got the fear gas thing and the hallucinations. But man, with the Joker, the Joker villain, it's like this guy could be your fucking next door neighbor or some shit, right? This is a real person, right? This could be a real person. And yeah, that's what like Heath Ledger brought to the world, right? This gritty reality. And it was scary seeing that, right? Like, yeah, that's it kind of goes back to what I was saying. Like, if you were introduced to Batman through the Adam West Batman, if the Joker is this like fun-loving, laughing guy in a bright outfit, like what a 180 seeing this Joker, right? Like, holy shit, this guy is dangerous. This guy is disturbing, right? Just to know there's a guy who there might be a guy out there in real life like this is just off-putting, right? So the reality is just wow. I mean, it actually was a bit of a turnoff for me when I was watching these movies. So, Christian, you're talking about how this period of time was a big turning point, right? The end of things and the start of things, right? It's crazy that Iron Man 1 came out at the same year as The Dark Knight, right? That's just wild that it was the same year. But it was almost like it was for me. It was almost like, oh wow, these are like superhero movies have really made it, right? Like the top people are making superhero movies, but it was almost like a decision, like, oh, am I gonna go to this new, really refreshing, fun angle with Tony Stark and Iron Man and Marvel, or is it like, whoa, am I going with the gritty reality of the Nolan Batman movies? And like I kind of made my choice and went Marvel, right? But it's just wild, like the timing of it all. And it was like it's so real. Like for me, like I guess I've been saying, it's arguably it was too real, right? But the realism was that's the big standout for me with this movie and really the whole Nolan trilogy. Thoughts, Porfirio?
Yeah, I mean, this movie, I think, Christian, we had watched this movie together, and I think that was the first time I had watched it for the first time, and which was back in our college days, and it was, yeah, like you said, like a real like realistic take on the character. And I think, like, that's why there is like a Batman Day, because Batman is just like a character that can be taken in so many interpretations. Like I feel each of us have like this different like take or takeaway that we each got from our own films that we watched with Batman. And this one is just like a real like if Batman was real, like this is how I think
Yeah.
like the closest thing we would see to like a realistic Batman, like how at the end of the day, Batman, like he is a human, he's a guy in a suit, he will not always win, and he has his limits, and I think that's just what makes the film like gives an extra mile of appreciation that like the superhero doesn't always have to win. And it's the film is just a masterpiece on its own. The music, the dialogue, the acting, everything's just great. But I think like what you mentioned, I think what makes this film stand out, not just as the best Batman film and not just as the best DC film, but one of the best superhero films, um, and even one of the best films. Like I feel like people can argue of all time is just because of how complex and realistic and even like in some ways like relatable that like people can go to this film, and even if you're not the biggest Batman fan, you could get something out of it, you know?
Well said.
Hmm.
Oh, and just one little point to add on there. Like, I feel like Nolan really brought a like a prestige to superhero movies that wasn't there before. So I mentioned how like, Batman and Robin could arguably be noted as like what led to the MCU. Um, a case could be made uh, that the Dark Knight trilogy, particularly The Dark Knight, led to like all these like A-list actors being cast in superhero movies. Like before that was like unheard of, right? It just wasn't done so much. I remember when Marlon Brando was cast in the Superman movie, Superman the movie, right? And people were like, "What the hell is he doing in a goofy superhero movie?" Right? Um, but for a while, that was kind of like the lone standout. But after the Nolan movies, like you mentioned the cast, Christian, and it was like, whoa, like this is an amazing cast. And not only is it amazing, but it's like the caliber of these actors, right? Oscar caliber actors. So I mean, you could argue like, oh, maybe Anthony Hopkins doesn't sign up for the Thor movie, or Robert Redford doesn't sign up to do Winter Soldier. Like, but with this movie, it brought that class and prestige to the table.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what about ratings? What would you rate The Dark Knight, Christian?
Yeah. Definitely a 5 out of 5. I think was like I've been hyping up this movie a long time. It's Everyone loves this movie. It's The Dark Knight. S tier superhero movie. 5 out of 5.
Right
I,
on.
th I think it um does everything a Batman movie should in a way, minus humor, if that with that different ballpark. Although there are some actually pretty funny moments in the movie. I do remember the theater laughing a lot at the Joker's magic trick, or some
Yeah.
of the times he would lighten the mood in a way, in his own like very dark humor type of
Yeah.
way.
Maybe dark humor, we'll put it that way.
Very
Yeah.
dark. It's
Yeah.
like the little bit of levity you get in this whole film.
There you go.
Or like his antics and like the way he like will respond to certain situations that are meant to be like ultra serious.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Christian, I have to ask really fast. Is this for you, The Dark Knight, the best Batman movie and the best Bruce Wayne movie, or do you have two different answers for that?
Okay. Oh, kind of like how you
Peter
might have
Parker.
different like Peter Parker,
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Uh-huh.
Um, let's see. In terms of the best, like I said before, I think I like the world of the Batman the a little more. The way they
Hmm.
filmed Gotham, the way the movie just looks and feels, the way it kind of brings back some of the um like there's like an atmosphere to that movie and the way they kind of present Batman in that one. And I really like Robert Pattinson's take on Bruce or Batman. His take on Bruce Wayne, he was kind of barely there. Whereas Christian Bale, on the other hand, very much like he has his own take, and I think a lot of people have made fun of the gravelly Batman voice. I talk like this all the time. That's kind of become its own like meme in its own way, yet also kind of became the de facto Batman voice since, like even
Yeah.
Lego Batman, he does it. Robert Pattinson does it, you know, Batfleck kind of does it in at times. And like where um I think Christian Bale, Bruce Wayne, definitely feels he definitely has carries a bit more of that intensity to him. You never really get a lot of Bruce Wayne himself in these movies when
Hmm.
he's outside of the
Batman.
costume,
Hmm.
when he is in his true self.
Hmm.
Um, but of course it's Christian Bale. He's really good at kind of having that dynamic between the two characters, the aloof Bruce Wayne and the hyper-focused, determined Batman, you know? So, I don't know if I have a favorite version of Bruce Wayne, but it might be him. His is probably the most developed.
Okay.
I don't know. So what do you guys think? Do you
Like,
guys think this is the best Batman movie
oof.
or even the superhero movie? Because you guys are more Marvel guy. So,
Okay.
what do
Do
you
you
think of the Dark Knight?
do you want to go first, Henry?
You can go first, Porfirio.
Okay, I am just gonna put a disclaimer out there, and I'm a late DC watcher, so I actually did not watch any of the Dark Knight films when they came out. I had to I watched it years later when Christian first showed it to me. So the only Batman film I watched in theaters is the Batman with Robert Patterson, and I fucking love that movie. Um, oh no, wait, sorry. No, I guess the Ben Affleck ones I also did watch in theaters. But I guess my favorite Batman is the Batman, Robert Patterson's Batman. But I think my favorite Bruce Wayne is Michael Keaton in Tim Burton's Batman movies. I think he just does a really good job as like being like kind of this like playboy kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of like cocky, kind of like our Robert Downey Jr., Tony Stark kind of vibes. And so I think that's why I like Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne. But That's my answer.
Yeah,
Good
good answer.
answer. Good answer. Yeah, definitely. So it sounds like this question is is being answered in a number of ways, but uh yeah, first off, like, is this the best Batman movie? A case definitely can be made. Like, it's it's a masterwork of filmmaking. There's no question about that. It's just filmmaking at the highest level. The direction, acting is just, yeah, it's on point, right? Um, but yeah, Christian, you were alluding to earlier, um, like, there's not a lot of comedy in it, and there isn't supposed to, obviously. But there is, like, I guess, a fun factor that is perhaps missing here. Um, so yeah, like, I don't think I'd rate it as the best Batman movie. Um, yeah, we all love the Batman. That's definitely up there. Um, Sentimental favorite is like the first Tim Burton Batman movie. I would totally agree with you, Porfirio, that, like, Michael Keaton is the best Bruce Wayne. He's very charismatic, and he's kind of weird and quirky and just awesome. He's just awesome. Um, and oh, and that all said, like, um, the third of the Nolan trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises, is generally not as well received as The Dark Knight, but kind of like what I was saying earlier, I think it kind of is a little more fun than The Dark Knight. It kind of has this big action spectacle at the end. You got the showdown between Batman and Bane, and it does have a happy ending, right? um, but yeah, I mean, I kind of had a little more fun with The Dark Knight Rises. um, but there's no question The Dark Knight is a masterpiece, and is a very important movie, period. Superhero movie or not, it's just an important piece of art, no question.
Mhm. But it's also the beauty of Batman is that everyone can have their own flavor, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
There's so much there's so many different aspects to the characters we were talking about earlier
Yeah,
that everyone can have their own favorite take, you know, their own Batman in a way.
yeah.
definitely.
I guess I have a question open to the both of you. I feel like I should have asked this at the beginning of the episode, but like since it's Batman Day, um, like yeah, like what does the character Batman mean to you, and why do you think we have a Batman Day?
All right. Well, I guess I'll go first. So, what does the character mean to me, and why do I think we have a whole day celebrating this comic book character? Like, I think Batman is like he means he means a lot of different things to me, and I think a lot of different things to different people. I
Hmm.
think what's great about Batman is there's always kind of this thematic kind of resonance um on top of just like the look and feel to it, where you have like kind of this like kind of duality of man. Batman is this man shaped by a very human tragedy, and he has no superpowers. I think in a world of superpowers where everyone does things, Batman pushes himself to be with Superman, to be with Wonder Woman and the rest of the Justice League, and fight on their level with just, the power of human will. You know, he has pushed himself beyond being a man. He's no longer Bruce Wayne, even though that's how he appears. He uses his money, his intelligence, his strength, and his will to fight crime, to uh, kind of protect Gotham.
Hmm.
and like his villains all kind of reflect different ways that he may have gone, where the Joker talks about how like, one bad day is all that it takes to come down to our level and become one of us, to become one of the crazies in Arkham.
Hmm.
And many of the villains have that. You see in the Dark Knight, Two-Face has that. And so on and so forth. Like you have these different villains that all have carry different aspects of Batman's character, themes, or personality, um, but in that kind of more evil direction. But Batman's, kind of moral compass, the right to do good and to never make it so no one else is in his situation, the kid in crime alley with two dead parents.
Hmm.
He does everything. He's kind of almost like he's more than a man. He's like a force of nature, a, a force of justice, who does everything in his path to reach that goal. So I think that's why Batman is so strong. Batman is so resonant. On top of just being, the cool gadgets, the car, the cave, the iconic bat signal and like look and feel to Batman that captures that noir aspect, but with that comic bookiness to it. So it's like that really cool layer on top
Hmm.
of that, themat thematic cake, that's the icing on top. So that that's my take.
Yeah, that's
That's
a good question. Like, why is the Batman character so compelling? I mean, this character has been around a long time and it has captured the interest of so many people for so long. Why? Why is it? So certainly, as Christian mentioned, there's the coolness factor, right? Like, just who doesn't want what Batman has? The Bat Cave, the Batmobile, the utility belt, all the gadgets, all the toys, right? It's just cool. It looks cool. The functionality of it all. It's awesome, right? Who wouldn't want this stuff? But yeah, on a deeper level, there certainly is a relatability aspect going on here because, like you were saying, Christian, Bruce Wayne is just a regular guy, no superpowers. So we've talked a lot in the past about how a big distinguishing feature of Marvel versus DC is that Marvel characters tend to be more relatable. Um, I think Batman's the big exception for DC because so many people, so many fans of the character are fans because they can relate to him, right? Here's a guy who, through hard work, turned himself into a superhero, right? Um, he again has no superpowers, but through sheer will, determination, and work and training, he put himself there, right? And like this backdrop of Gotham as this dark, disturbing, dangerous place, it ultimately the Batman character is a pretty hopeful character because it gives people the feeling that through hard work, prep time, you could call it, you could you could overcome anything, right? All the evils in the dark alleyways of Gotham City can be overcome through what Batman has done, right? Um, Through what Batman has done, he can defeat the most powerful opponents, right? People with superpowers, with godlike powers. An ordinary man, through hard work and resourcefulness, can overcome, right? So and I will add, he does this like essentially all by himself, right?
Mhm.
Um, I think a lot of these sort of um lonely lone wolf types perhaps latch on to Batman for this reason. But yeah, he's done it all on his own, right? And there's another sort of compelling aspect to the character. He doesn't need help. Like he is driven by this personal tragedy, but he's done it all by himself, right? Like it gives hope for people that like I can do this. I can make this work. I can overcome. As long as you put in the work, and yeah, like you can overcome anything. You can overcome the greatest evils in the world. So yeah, I think that's like kind of the bottom line with why the character is so compelling.
Hmm.
How
Hmm.
about you, Porfirio?
I think, like both of you guys, like what you said, I think Batman's just a character that, unlike other DC heroes like Superman, Flash, Green Lantern, he's just at the end of the day, he's a guy with no superpowers. He puts on a mask and a suit and goes out and fight crime. And not only does he have like a cool design that like little kids like and everything, but at the end of the day, I feel like, as we had mentioned like through the three films that there's like this spectrum of different um sides to Batman that I feel like everybody can relate to. There's like a comedic aspect to Batman. There's even like a queer aspect to it, and then like there's a dark aspect to it. I feel like there's something within Batman, the character, that anybody can relate to, and that's what makes the character have its own celebration day. It's he's someone that is not simple and can be explained very easily, but he's somebody that can appeal to everyone. And I just think that, Batman's existed as, or he's had as much popularity as he has, is because there's just been so much like evolution with the character, that like like you said, Henry, in the 60s he was seen as very comedic, and it wasn't until like later on Frank Miller made him like a little bit more serious and a little bit, give him a backstory about um like what happened and how he dealt with like his like problem psychologically. I think that the character is just so, I hate using this word, but like interesting, that people just can be able to be attracted to mm, like the mythos of the character. And I think, yeah, that's why we have a Batman Day, because of how fucking cool he is, but also like just he is a larger than life pop culture character.
Well said. Yeah. And I might add, we talked about this previously a bit, but um, Batman, like the whole Batman universe, is is cool, not only because Batman is cool, but like just every aspect of the universe is cool, right? Gotham City, like the location is it's just I mean that's a huge part of the Batman mythology, right? And the inhabitants of Gotham City, the rogues gallery, like Batman villains are just like the best, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
um so yeah, I mean there's so many aspects to this universe that are compelling and um and kind of intoxicating, right? So yeah, like there's such a like there's something for anyone, right? Like maybe
Hmm.
if you're not a huge fan of the Batman character, there's someone in this universe you're gonna connect with, right? So yeah, like I definitely want to call that out. Yeah, Batman Day, I think, is a celebration of the character of Batman, but it's more than that too, right? It's the setting, it's the other characters, and it's just the whole thing.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Batman the franchise too.
Definitely,
Yeah, for
definitely,
sure.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
there's definitely people who'll be like, oh, I'm not so big into Batman, but I love Teen Titans, which prominently features Robin
Hmm.
or Harley Quinn, or
The Joker.
yeah, like oh, but
Uh-huh.
I really like the Joker movie, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
like
Hmm.
oh, but I really like that Gotham TV show, you know.
Hmm.
May not be Batman himself, but something Batman adjacent to, or a different
Hmm.
character that came from Batman.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So before we wrap up, we can kind of have just general open discussion. Um, I mentioned the Rogues Gallery. This is kind of a fun question to throw out to the group. Do you have a favorite Batman villain?
Ooh, yeah, I do. Um, I always love Two-Face. I think
Hmm.
Two-Face is someone who like captures that real cool, gritty crime noir feel. The way he has the coin, the iconic coin that he flips to make the decision. He carries that like really cool gangster vibe, especially in Batman the Animated Series. Uh, like like Two-Face is just cool, you know.
Cool.
That's
What about you,
For,
Porfirio?
I mean, I think by default my answer is Harley Quinn, but I feel like in more recent years she's kind of like been, I mean, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but like I feel like she's like strayed away from like being a Batman villain and just kind of done her
Hmm.
own thing.
Yeah.
But I guess like as a Batman villain, I say my favorite one is Poison Ivy. I
Hmm.
think like she's just, you know, I we've talked about this, like how like a villain is like a movie or a project is only good as its villain. And I think Poison Ivy is just like a villain that's just very like relatable, and you understand like what where she's coming from. She wants to kill humans because how they are mistreating the planet Earth and stuff, and just wants to take down all these like major like oil companies and like major capitalism businesses and stuff like that. And so of course, Batman comes and doesn't want her to be like an eco terrorist or anything, so he has to stop her. But I fucking love Poison Ivy.
Right on. Yeah, I was thinking what makes Batman villains so cool is that I feel like a lot of Batman villains could be the villain in a horror movie, probably more than any other superheroes villains. Um, but none more so than uh the Scarecrow. Yeah. And I think, yeah, he's my favorite Batman villain. And it's just cool that his quote unquote superpower is fear, right? That's what he uses. And I was also thinking, like, they did a Joker solo movie. How cool would it be if they made a rated R horror Scarecrow movie? I mean,
ooh,
how awesome would that be if they
that
if
would
they,
be really
if they did it
cool.
right? Yeah, if they did
that
it right.
that'd be tight.
Yeah. So that's my pick.
I like that idea. Like I could see that for like quite a few villains too.
Oh
Sure.
yeah, for
I wish
Yeah.
sure.
DC would try more of those,
Mm-hmm.
and
Definitely.
These
Marvel.
Warner, no, don't not Marvel. They've already been trying with the Spider-Man films,
Oh
and they've gone
yeah,
horribly wrong.
I've conveniently forgotten all about those.
Okay. Here's, I guess, a question that I don't know if, okay. So we've seen many actors come and go, take on the role of Batman. but who would you like to take up the role next as Batman? Which actor would be a good Batman character?
Oh, it's a
Wow.
tough one.
Yeah. Rob Pattinson just became Batman. You want to talk about the next one already?
Well, like they replace Andrew Garfield like what in like 4 years, so
That's true. That's true.
They do have a new Batman for, I think they already announced him for James Gunn's Batman movies.
Oh, is that
they
right?
did?
Gunverse, yeah.
They did?
I forget, maybe. No, I'm thinking of Superman. I don't think
No,
they've,
yes. No, they've
yeah.
announced Superman. Uh-huh.
But I guess they do have one right around the corner. A new Batman.
That's
Uh-huh.
right.
Who should take up who do you guys think should do Batman?
Hmm.
I have someone in mind.
Well, well, I think who do you have, Porfirio?
I think Oscar Isaac would be
Hmm.
freaking good as Batman. Like, I'm sorry, like Moon Knight did not do. I wouldn't blame Oscar Isaac on a bad Moon Knight TV show. I blame the writing. But I think
Hmm.
Oscar Isaac has the acting skills and um like just the charisma to make a good Batman and Bruce Wayne.
Like,
Good
um,
call.
I'm as far as my pick. Okay, so I can never find a good young up and coming actor to play a new role or like someone on the younger side.
Hmm.
So I might try to go for that older Batman, something they were trying to do with Ben Affleck.
Hmm.
One name I've seen thrown around that I think could do a really good job. Um, he's got the perfect chin and demeanor for it. Would Carl Urban, Dread,
Mm.
Mm.
especially after his performance in Dread, I could see him playing an older, more hardened Batman really well. Or if they wanted to go something closer to say Batman Beyond, I think he could also do really well in it.
I could
Maybe he's,
see.
yeah.
I was gonna say I could see him being more kind of like a like Flashpoint Paradox Batman. Like
Oh, yeah, like
like
playing Thomas Wayne.
yeah, like definitely more like fuck this guy. Like I fucked up once and I'm not gonna do it again. Like this guy needs to like be done and done for. For me, yeah, I just can't see Carl like forgiving and being like, okay, I'm gonna take you to jail. I feel like he's just gonna be like totally Punisher style and just be like, no, exterminate this dude, you know. But it'll be interesting. I think that'd be an interesting role and take. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. The next Batman. Well, um, I guess as long as we're talking about like just hopes and dreams or whatever, because this one it would never happen because my pick is the guy who was turned down for the Batman. Like if you guys recall, it went down to the wire between Robert Pattinson and Nicholas Hoult. And I was
Mm-hmm.
rooting for Nicholas
Hmm.
Hoult because I'm just kind of a big fan of his entire career. So I've always been like super curious, like, oh, what would the Nicholas Hoult, the Batman, be like? Right? We'll never know. But it's one of those great what ifs because man, that went down to the wire. Like they were like neck and neck, and the studios were evaluating for what seemed to be a long time. So
Hmm.
the curiosity factor was definitely there. So one of those great what ifs.
Why this guy?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm just a fan of his work. He was great in
Okay.
Warm Bodies. He was great as Beast in the X-Men movies.
Hmm.
And yeah, he's very anytime he's in a movie, in a small role and a big role, he's just very charismatic and he was hilarious in the Menu, pretty more recently. But yeah, I just like him a lot, and I would love to see what he would have done as Bruce Wayne.
I believe he was one of the finalists for like the James Gunn Superman
Oh,
universe.
interesting, interesting.
Hmm. Like, do you think he could have played Superman?
I don't know about that one.
Yeah,
That
that's
that
hard to
that yeah,
see.
it's hard. It's hard for me to see that.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I could see him making a really good Batman though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Well, as long as we're talking Batman, this is kind of a basic one, but inevitably comes up a lot. We've been talking about the Joker. Everyone seems to have an opinion on who was the best Joker, right? Which actor was the best Joker in a live action, or
Hmm.
maybe not in live action? You know, any Joker, any Joker. Who's your favorite Joker?
hmm, like
Like
oh yeah, go for it.
like animated or live
Yeah, I'll
action
open it up. Yeah, why not?
or Mark Hamill for sure. That's hands down. Like there, I feel like that's a no contest kind of thing. I mean, I don't know. Christian could have a different opinion, but like, yeah, anytime I read like Joker comics or anything like that, I always hear it in his voice. I think he just really encapsulated that like psychotic, like comedic um character of Joker.
Yeah, he's definitely the voice you hear when you read the comic. And he kind of does like a little bit of like he does have that more psychoticness to it, but
Mhm.
he could also be a little more playful, like the Cesar Romero Joker, you know?
Yeah,
Hmm.
Like he is the
yeah,
perfect like in between
exactly. Yeah.
between the extremes of say like Joaquin Phoenix and Heath Ledger and Cesar Romero.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
What do you
He's
think, Christian?
yeah. Like yeah, he's definitely like yeah, I might have to go with Mark Hamill as well. As much as I love Heath Ledger's Joker, he's so like iconic in his own right. He's um like I'd say he's the best live action Joker, you know. He made the character his own and he kind of like embodied it and kind of brought this new energy that's very Joker in its own way, but kind of took in its own direction and kind of became its own beast in a way. Like it's a performance so electrifying that you feel his presence throughout the movie, even when he's not on screen and not there. You're just wondering where he is,
Yeah.
like he's just around the corner. Um, but like Mark Hamill's Joker is such like an important, like iconic part of my childhood with Batman the Animated Series in high
Mhm.
school, Batman Arkham Asylum, video
Mhm.
games, and
Oh,
like
he did the voice for the video game?
yeah, he did,
Oh, I didn't know that.
as well as like various Batman animated movies that I would get,
Uh-huh. And then
like
he also did the Batman Beyond movie also, didn't he?
he did, yeah, Return of the Joker.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
Hmm.
That's cool. Yeah, I watched Mask of the Phantasm for the first time recently. We talked about it in a recent episode.
Mhm.
But that was when I was first introduced to Mark Hamill voicing the Joker, and I totally get it now. I was like, wow, he's so awesome. And like, I mentioned how Frank Gorshin really like committed to the Riddler role in the Batman movie. Um, Mark Hamill the same way. Like he really commits to this character, and in a medium where you can kind of mail it in. It's just a kid's animated movie, whatever. You just like kind of read your lines. But no, he really puts in a powerhouse performance doing that character. So it's great. That's it. I would say Joaquin Phoenix is my favorite Joker.
Mm.
I think the typical answer or the typical debate is Heath Ledger or Joaquin Phoenix, right? Both Oscar winners, right? Um, I will say this, like there probably would be no Joker movie if not for the Heath Ledger performance, right? So respect due there, of course. But I really love like Joaquin Phoenix take on the character where it's like the tortured villain, right? That movie they really drive that home where it's this guy who ends up doing terrible things, but you really see how he got to that point. And we talked about realism and relatability. um I really have never seen it quite like that with a villainous character, right? I think that's really important nowadays, right? Where there are a lot of terrible things happening in this world, and a lot of people are like, why is this happening? Why are people doing these terrible things? And terrible things don't happen out of nowhere. There is a root cause to everything, right? So yes, the Joker movie is, a work of fiction, but there is so much real life shit going on in that movie, right? It and I had mentioned, with Heath Ledger's Joker, you get a lot of that in The Dark Knight, right? But with Joaquin Phoenix in the Joker movie, it really expands on that, right? This is some real shit. A real person can go through this and become like what the Joker becomes, right? Yeah, the tortured villain who doesn't want to be a terrible person, but does terrible things because of the trauma in their lives. It's just so powerful. So yeah, that's my pick.
Cool. Okay, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, either of you two can answer, but we've been talking about Batman obviously for the last hour, and but I feel like we've been talking a lot about like Bruce Wayne Batman. Like, I guess this is similar to like, like Spider-Man. Like it took years before like we saw like another Spider-Man, Miles Morales, or even Miguel O'Hara as Spider-Man 2099. And even when those characters debuted, there was a lot of controversy about like that's not my Spider-Man that I grew up with, like, times have changed, and nowadays like both those characters have been like well accepted and have their own films, like I feel like two other Batman characters that have kind of taken off like in like pop culture and even the comics are like the Batman Beyond character, which what's the guy's name?
It's Terry McGinnis.
Yeah, him, and the comics Jace Fox. Like, how long do you think it's going to take until we get like a new Batman? And do you think that there's going to be the same kind of like uproar of like that's not my Batman when those films come out?
Hmm. Oh, like a Batman film where it's about somebody else
Yeah, and
taking up
not
the mantle from Bruce Wayne.
yeah.
Um, like I, you didn't like it's too bad that Robin never really took off, I think, as much in the films.
Hmm.
Um, because I think that would always be, you think of like, it's like, oh well, they've never really made like a Nightwing movie before. You have all
Hmm.
these Batman movies, but there's only like a couple with Robin in them,
Hmm.
and he's never, well, he's taken off as his own character in the comics, as well as say like in like Teen Titans as well. Yeah, there's never really been a Nightwing movie, because Dick Grayson's usually like the first one to take up the mantle in the
Yeah.
comics if Batman ever dies, quote unquote, your comic book death. Uh, like, I think it would be cool to have movies that explore more of the Bat family. I think that's what James Gunn is going to try to do.
Hmm.
But so, like, I think it would be nice. It would be cool. Joker did really well. Gotham had a few seasons.
Yeah.
Might might be time to try, something new with someone else either taking up the mantle or becoming like their own hero.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good question. I was kind of thinking of something along those lines too, Porfirio. But comic geeks are notoriously hard-headed and just resistant to change, right? The fact that Miles Morales was ultimately accepted and has become part of, I don't know, the pop culture phenomenon of Spider-Man is pretty cool. But like I'm thinking Batman fans in particular are hard-headed, yeah. And like even as like how resistant to change comic geeks are in general, I think Batman fans maybe a little bit more. So it's a tall order. So the change happens with everything. So will like a non Bruce Wayne Batman come to the forefront and become a fan favorite? Of course, yeah. Over time, it will happen. This is an inevitability, right? But I feel like it'll be a long time. And I would argue Batman might be like the last of all the major superheroes to see like a new incarnation become very popular, right? So we'll see. I bet like 20 years ago people would think like, oh, like a black Spider-Man would be nothing more than like a niche sort of thing. But I mean, look at Miles now, like, so anything's possible, right? um I just think with this character in particular, it's kind of specifically an uphill climb. So it'll probably be quite some time.
I need a Batman Beyond movie already. Like
Mhm.
I feel like that's
Yes, we
also
do.
that's like very long overdue. And
Hmm.
if any time it's the time to make it, it's now. Well, we still have Michael Keaton who can play the older Bruce Wayne, you know?
Yeah, how frustrating was that news piece about how if the Flash movie was successful, they would green light the Michael Keaton Batman Beyond movie, right? And now it's like, oh, I guess it's not happening. So why'd you tell me that in the first
I
place?
know, right?
Oh
Why
well.
tease us?
I know. Oh well.
Mhm.
Okay. Here's a final little question, or perhaps final, but um so Porfirio, you brought up a very interesting conversation about Batman through a queer lens, right?
Mhm.
Um, and I think there have been some uh, some commentary on this, here and there.
Okay.
Um, so I mean, particularly the relationship between Batman and Robin, but that's not the only thing, right? I mean, you brought up a lot of it in the Batman and Robin movie, and the Batman and Robin relationship wasn't even part of it. You're talking more about like the camp feel and the costumes and
Mhm.
whatnot, right? Um, but do you guys think there are any iterations of Batman where Batman is queer? Comics or TV or movies?
Hmm.
I don't think there's ever been an out Batman. I feel like, yeah, it's just been like interpreted that maybe there's been like a relationship between Batman and Robin, you know? But to the best of my knowledge, I don't know of a queer Batman. But not to say that it can't happen in the future, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah, my quick comment on that is uh so yeah, your commentary on the Batman and Robin movie was interesting. But also like the 60s Batman movie I was talking about, there were some undertones there for sure. I mean, look, a lot has been said about like a grown man with a teenage sidekick who's in short shorts, right? So there's that. There's the obvious low hanging fruit there. But there's an interesting dynamic between Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson in that movie, because as I alluded to, there's a romance. Bruce Wayne is involved in a romantic relationship with uh, Catwoman's like fake persona, right, Kitka. So there are some scenes where Robin and Alfred are like monitoring the two of them. Like they're on a date, right? And they have like a security cam on them. And then things get a little spicy, you know, they get a little touchy-feely, they start like kissy and it's really funny. Robin's like, he can't watch. He's like, "Oh, this doesn't feel right. This this is like too personal. This is intrusive, you know." And he turns off the camera. He can't watch it, right? So, um, so on the surface level, it's supposed to be like, "Oh, I respect his privacy. This is an intimate moment, so he can't watch." But you can't help but feel like he's jealous, right? He can't watch his best guy with this woman, right? So it's kind of like what you're saying, Porfirio. There's nothing explicit, but there are like undertones and there's like read between the line stuff all over the place, right? So
Mhm.
I feel the same way. Like there really isn't any explicit outright um queer stuff going on, but yeah, you can read into it for sure.
Yeah, I think like what I've also seen throughout, I get like a lot of Batman fiction, um, is that Batman's true relationship is really to the mission. Um, Batman's one love is truly justice. In a way, it's almost like you could say like there's like kind of an asexuality to it,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
to Batman, where he's very single-minded. He just wants to go, to be Batman. That is his true love. Or I've also seen that, the Lego Batman movie touches on this. Batman's true partner in life is the Joker.
The Joker, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Batman and the Joker are the two characters that truly complete each other, you know. They um they're both the complete opposites, and as you know, as the phrase goes, the opposites attract in a way. It's kind of their own. There's even like certain like kind of Batman comics that not explore in any sort of like romantic way, but like that there's something kind of greater that brings them together. A really good one is Death of the Family,
Mm.
where the Joker is basically the one telling Batman, "Look, your family is what makes you weak. I am what makes you strong."
Mm.
So there's all in a way there's that kind of relationship there as well.
Good stuff. All right. So we've been talking a lot about Batman in movies, but Batman was not born of the movies. He was born of comic books, right? So we're gonna do a little comics recommendation. Christian, do you have any Batman comics to recommend?
Yeah, I got a really good one. One that I think was really big into me, like really getting into reading Batman comics. It might be a little hard to find right now, but I want to get a shout out to the Batman comic storyline. It's called Batman Venom. Um, so I'm a real big fan of the Nightfall storyline arc, the one where Bane breaks Batman's back. And this is kind of the precursor to it.
Mm,
It came before Bane actually debuted in comics. Um, and it collects Legends of the Dark Knight, which is Batman's kind of like early years crime fighting. But this is printed, I think this is printed in like the early 90s. And the idea is that Batman suffers like a really bad defeat. He's not able to save save a little girl from drowning. And so in that moment of weakness, he starts taking the same drug that Bane takes, Venom, in order to become stronger and faster. It's a lot like the Spider-Man Black Suit arc, the iconic
Mm.
Spider-Man arc with Venom, where he gets the symbiote suit. I know in the comics it happens a little differently, but say like in the animated series and in the movies, he's known for becoming more aggressive, and the suit kind of takes him on a bit of a darker path than he really wants to. And of course, with Batman Venom, it being rather than an alien costume, it's just drugs. There's kind of that steroid addiction kind of analogy, like thrown in there. And so I think it definitely gets to like kind of that heart of like who Batman is and why he does what he does, you know, in that really nice gritty format, you know. So if you can find it, I do highly recommend it. Batman Venom.
Excellent. Love getting those comics recommendations. And with that, we can wrap up the episode. This is farewell from Henry, Christian, and Porfirio.